What if the person you thought would ruin your night became the only one who could save your broken heart? A paralyzed CEO walked into a blind date expecting disappointment, humiliation, and loneliness. But then, a mechanic with grease-stained hands and the gentlest smile walked in, and her life would never be the same again. Don't scroll, because this story will break your heart, heal it, and remind you that love comes from the most unexpected places. And before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel, so you never miss the stories that change the way you see the world. The rain tapped gently against the tall glass windows of the expensive restaurant, the kind of place where successful people paraded their victories with fine wine and polished words. Inside, laughter and music filled the air, yet at the corner table by the window sat a woman who felt worlds apart from it all. Her name was Isabella Grant. To the world, she was a titan. CEO of one of the fastest-growing tech companies in the country. But to herself, she was something much smaller these days. Ever since the accident that stole her ability to walk, Isabella felt like her body had betrayed her. She was 32, beautiful, powerful, and wealthy, but none of it stopped the loneliness from creeping in at night, none of it silenced the voice inside whispering, "You'll never be loved again." She adjusted her silk scarf nervously and glanced at the clock. 8 minutes late. Her blind date, set up by her well-meaning but persistent friend, had already missed the first impression window. She sighed. Another man would come in, see the wheelchair, smile politely, and excuse himself with some shallow excuse. She was tired of being pitted, tired of being a disappointment. The waiter appeared, asking softly if she wanted to order, but Isabella shook her head. She wanted to give it 10 more minutes. 10 more minutes to prove herself wrong, or to prove her fears right. Her eyes wandered around the restaurant, where couples leaned close, hands brushing, laughter spilling freely. A sting of envy hit her chest. She remembered once being that woman who lit up when a man walked into the room. But that woman felt like a ghost now. Then, just as she was about to tell the waiter to cancel, the door swung open. Isabella's breath caught, not because she saw a well-dressed businessman like she expected, but because in walked a man who looked completely out of place. He wore a leather jacket still damp from the rain, dark jeans, and boots that had clearly seen years of work. His hands were rough, his knuckles scratched, and there was a faint smear of grease on his forearm he hadn't bothered to wipe off. A mechanic. And for some reason, her heart fluttered at the sight. He scanned the room, spotted her, and smiled, not the polite, rehearsed smile she was used to, but something warm, genuine, and disarmingly simple. "Isabella?" he asked, approaching the table. His voice carried a low, steady confidence. She blinked, slightly thrown off. "Yes. And you must be Nathan?" "That's me." He slid into the chair across from her, shaking rain from his jacket, not at all embarrassed about his appearance. In fact, he looked more comfortable here than she felt. "Sorry I'm late. Car trouble on the way here." "Fitting, huh? Mechanic running late because of a car." She chuckled despite herself, her lips curving in a smile she hadn't felt in months. "That does sound ironic." And just like that, the walls around her began to shift. Nathan didn't glance nervously at her wheelchair. He didn't ask awkward questions. He didn't look at her as if she was fragile or broken. He just looked at her, the woman, not the chair, not the accident, not the limitations. They ordered, and the conversation flowed far more easily than Isabella had anticipated. He spoke about his small but thriving garage, about how he loved fixing things people thought were beyond repair. "I guess I just hate giving up on something, or someone, that still has life left in it," he said, eyes locking onto hers in a way that made her chest tighten. Isabella told him about her company, her love for designing systems that made life easier for people. But she didn't speak like the polished CEO she had to be in boardrooms. With Nathan, her voice softened, her laughter came more freely, and for the first time in a long time, she felt seen. Halfway through the meal, she caught herself forgetting about the chair, forgetting about the insecurities, forgetting about the people staring. She was simply Isabella, a woman on a date with a man who listened to her as though her words mattered more than the world outside. But still, the shadows lingered. When Nathan excused himself to the restroom, Isabella's mind began to betray her again. This is too good to be true. He's being kind because he feels sorry for me. Once the novelty wears off, he'll walk away like the others. She stared at her reflection in the wine glass, seeing the CEO, the wheelchair, the scars nobody else could see. The fear crept in like a storm. When Nathan returned, he noticed the change in her expression. He leaned forward, elbows resting casually on the table. "You're doing that thing again." "What thing?" she asked, surprised. "That thing where you shrink into yourself, like you're waiting for me to say something cruel." His tone was gentle, not accusing. Her throat tightened. "Maybe I'm just used to people disappointing me." Nathan didn't flinch. Instead, he reached across the table, his hand resting near hers but not forcing a touch. "Isabella, I fix broken engines for a living. You know what I've learned? Some of the toughest, most beautiful machines look like a mess on the outside. But inside, they've still got fire. You've still got fire. And anyone who can't see that doesn't deserve to sit across from you." Her chest ached with something she hadn't allowed herself to feel in so long, hope. For the rest of the night, she laughed until her cheeks hurt, talked until the restaurant began to close, and realized something startling. For the first time since the accident, she wasn't counting the hours until she could go home and hide. She didn't want the night to end. As Nathan walked her out, holding the door against the rain, he didn't lean down to give a pitying smile. Instead, he simply said, "I'd like to see you again. If you'll let me." And for the first time in years, Isabella didn't hesitate. "I'd like that too." She smiled as the rain fell harder, realizing she wasn't just alive, she was living again. Days turned into weeks, and Isabella found herself waiting for Nathan's calls like a teenager again. He didn't treat her like porcelain, didn't hide from her scars, and never once made her feel like a burden. Instead, he challenged her, laughed with her, and reminded her that life was still worth tasting. When her board members whispered doubts about her ability to lead, Nathan reminded her of the fire in her that had built an empire. When she broke down in the quiet of the night, fearing she'd never be enough, Nathan simply held her hand and said, "You've always been more than enough." It wasn't a fairy tale without storms. They argued, they stumbled, they doubted. But every time, they chose each other. Isabella realized love wasn't about perfection, it was about persistence. And for the first time since the accident, she wasn't just surviving. She was smiling. She was alive. So, if you believe love can heal even the deepest wounds, never forget this story. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories that touch the heart and remind us, miracles happen when you least expect them.